Chapter 5, Markup as a Merchandising Tool, Part 1. In this chapter, you will learn about the markup, and there are 5 objectives for this chapter. First, you will be able to understand the importance of markup when pricing merchandise, and second, you'll be able to understand the timing of the markups, and third, to develop skill in calculating dollar markup and markup percent. And fourth, to understand how a buyer averages markup on various items in an attempt to achieve planned markup goals. And last, you'll be able to define and calculate 3 types of markup, including initial, maintain, and cumulative markups. And let's look at what you're going to learn in this chapter. So Chapter 5 overview. We'll start from the markup definition. So what is markup? And markup is a percent based on the retail and based on the cost. And basic markup calculation, markup percent on a group of items, not a single item. Timing of markups, averaging markups, initial markup, cumulative markup, and maintained markup. You're right, there are lots of things to cover in this chapter, but don't worry about it. That's what you're gonna learn, and all these different kinds of markup and definition of the markup and markup as a percent, so on, you will learn in this chapter. So it's gonna be fun and exciting part. And also, since the markup is really important concept in retail math and retail buying, it's gonna be really significant for you to understand well about this markup. I mean, everything is really important, but also I want you to know this is a really important concept when you buy the product and when you make a price for your product. Chapter 5, Part 1, especially for today's class, I will cover the markup definition and markup as a percent. So let's start from the markup definition. So what is markup? So markup is defined as the amount added to the cost price in order to establish the retail price. So that means that when you purchase a product from the vendor, so we talked about this cost of merchandise sold the last time, but this cost, just imagine that if you sell the product at cost, so whatever you got it from your vendor, same cost, if you put that on the floor as the same price, then what's gonna happen? You're right, you have no profit at all. Or it can be even minus because you have to spend some expenses, right? So you have to add some amount to this cost price. Then this added amount is called as a markup. So markup should be used as a guide rather than the determinant. That means that your initial markup or your planned markup can be really flexible because your situation or your sales from the last year or many different reasons, like your markup can be changed. So use that as a guide rather than a determinant. And markup is the difference between the retail price of merchandise and its cost value. So if you know the retail price and the cost, you can calculate the markup. So retail minus cost, this added amount is going to be markup. And before we talk more about this markup itself, I also want you to know about the difference between the markup and mark-on. And oftentimes we use this markup as added amount for the individual items. In this chapter, we're going to talk about that with the group of items as well, but compared to the mark-on, it often used like that. Mark-on is going to be the concept more applied to the manufacturer level. So for the retailer, we're going to use markup, but maybe you hear about this markup for the manufacturer level. And this is going to be not just single, but the total amount. So there's going to be total addition for all merchandise for the department. So it's not just for single or individual item, but it's going to be the total for the whole department. And we're going to more focus on this markup, and also we're going to talk about that just for the single item and the multiple items as well. But just want you to know about the difference between these two terms. So let's start to talk about the markup. How can you calculate the markup? As you already look at it from the previous slide, markup is going to be the difference between the retail and the cost. So the retail price that you're going to put this product on the floor minus the cost that you got it from your vendor is going to be markup. So it's gonna be retail minus cost. And cost will be, so you can calculate the cost if you markup and retail. So cost is gonna be retail minus markup. And you can also calculate the retail if you know the other two. So that means that, retail is gonna be cost plus markup. Now you learn how to calculate this like a dollar amount. Also, you can apply that for the percentage, but I also want you to know about this markup as a percent, because percentages are really important and more meaningful when you compare the different numbers. And markup can be calculated as a percent of a retail price or cost. So there are like two different ways to calculate this markup. And oftentimes, if I just ask you to calculate markup, that means that use the retail method. So use the retail as a denominator, and we're going to talk more about it in the next slide. So, but if I say calculate the markup based on the cost, only that time you're going to calculate the markup based on the cost. But oftentimes, I'll tell you, if just somebody say calculate the markup, that means they calculate the markup based on the retail. And let's look at this calculating markup percent based on retail. So when you calculate the markup percent based on retail, that means that you're gonna use this retail number as a denominator. And at this point, like when you calculate the markup percent based on retail, your retail price is gonna be always 100%. So there's the reason you're putting this like a dollar amount of the retail at the bottom. And now you already know that the dollar markup is gonna be dollar retail minus dollar cost. And when you calculate this markup percent based on the retail, it's gonna be dollar markup divided by dollar retail. So dollar markup is gonna be dollar retail minus dollar cost, the same as dollar markup. And what you're gonna do, you're gonna put this dollar retail at the bottom. So dollar markup divided by dollar retail is gonna be the markup percent. And this is the common way that we code it as a markup. If I just say calculate the markup, this is gonna be the method. But let's look at the second way. You can also calculate the markup percent based on cost. And only the difference is gonna be your denominator. You're gonna put the same dollar amount of the markup at the top, but you're gonna put the dollar cost instead of the retail price at the bottom. So you will calculate this markup percent based on the cost, and you will consider your cost is gonna be the 100%. And dollar markup, you know this already, so dollar retail minus dollar cost. And when you calculate this markup percent based on cost, it's gonna be dollar amount of the markup divided by dollar cost, not dollar, retail, dollar cost. And this dollar markup is same as dollar retail minus cost, so you put that up, on the top numerator divided by dollar cost. Then you will get the markup percent based on cost. So there are two different ways, but I just want you to also know about this. If you want to calculate this markup with the same number for the retail price, cost, and the markup, then you're gonna get the higher markup percentage if you calculate it based on the cost. Because think about only the number changed based on this like denominator, right? Because only the denominator is different. And your retail price is always greater than your cost, right? So when your denominator is greater, then your whole number will be smaller. So what you have to know, your markup percentage based on the cost is gonna be always greater than the markup percentage based on the retail. You can kind of apply that. Just think about that, like a retail price of $10, the $100, and just put the markup dollar as like $60 and put the cost as 40 or like 50-50 is fine. You can just practice play with the number. Then you will get the different markup percentage, whether you put the base as a retail or the cost. Okay, and comparison of markup based on the cost with the markup based on the retail. So this is what I said. Markup based on retail is always less than 100%. But markup based on cost is always larger than based on retail and may exceed 100%. So apply this case, like $50 cost and $50 markup and $100 retail. That case, you're gonna get the markup, right? of the how much 50%, and you're gonna get 100% in the markup if you calculate based on the retail. So what I want to tell you is that if you use same number to calculate markup based on the retail and markup based on cost, you always will get the greater markup percentage based on cost, because your cost is always smaller than retail. Okay? So I think that's really like pretty much it for this chapter.